Got, I lost my cursor there. There we go. Peter in New York, thanks for waiting.
Thank you.
You're on the air.
Am I on? I'm sorry, this is the first time I've done this. I'm really sorry. Am I on? Can I just
you're on live. You're on live. What do you got for us?
Oh, cool. Okay, so I'm an atheist, and I just wanted to today present the evolutionary argument against naturalism. See how you guys would respond. So I don't know if you've heard of it before,
Sure.
or which version you've heard of it. But I can run it by you real quick. So the idea is that
Hey,
if you're
Peter?
an atheist.
Peter?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yep.
No, I'm just warning you in advance because some people consider this rude. It's very likely that you'll get interrupted at some point, and it's only because we have a tradition where if we let someone present an entire argument and then try to go back to the beginning to the first point of objection or the point where we need a definition, it often gets confusing. So there's a good chance that you'll be interrupted to provide clarification or to say, you know, I reject this particular premise, and that means that there's not much reason to continue. But by all means, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, it makes total sense. I was sort of a philosopher in undergrad, so I totally understand the need for definitions, and so yeah, it sounds good. So to start off with the argument, so the argument is, I'll just give an overview of what it is, and I can present it rather quickly, but here's just a quick overview of what it seeks to show. What it seeks to show is that if you're an atheist, and if you consider the conjunction of evolution and naturalism, naturalism being defined as a belief system in which all there is matter, the physical world, or even a more rigorous way might be to say things that have measurable properties that are measurable in terms of being public information that would be amenable to some instrument measuring their value. So that would be public properties, or even all the properties that exist. You think that all those things that exist are those, and then you're a naturalist. And I think most atheists are naturalists. So I'm kind of grouping the two together in the sense. I know you could. So in theory, let me just quickly say right from the outset.
So for clarity, there's two different connotations of naturalism. There's philosophical naturalism, which is the philosophical belief that the natural world is all there is. And then there's methodological naturalism, which is what science relies on, which recognizes that science is blocked from investigating or confirming non-natural causes. And it's not an assertion that the natural is all that exists. It's a recognition that the natural is all we can investigate. And so while I can't speak for most atheists, I am probably a naturalist under both categories, but I'm not in any way asserting that the supernatural doesn't exist. My position is that the supernatural hasn't been demonstrated to exist, and that it may be the case that we can never confirm the existence of the supernatural, which is why science and myself and others tend to vie for methodological naturalism.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as far as science is concerned, I think you need to have methodological naturalism. With respect to the question of sort of a philosophical naturalist, and sort of a naturalist sort of realism about the external world.
Sure.
I think most atheists do fall in the category of being asserting the position that that at least here's how I'd phrase it, that is sort of a way of what we know is inference to the best explanation. That right now, given all the knowledge we have, the best explanation of what we see around us is that there is nothing beyond the natural world, and induction would tell us that the things that we find surprising and that don't jive with the rest of what we know about the natural world will be explained at some point. Is that fair?
No, not necessarily, because first of all, there's no position that necessarily says that this will be explained at some point. It's just, you know, nobody's claiming, oh, we're eventually going to have an explanation for everything and it's all going to be natural. That's not the case. So most of the scientists, most of the philosophers, and most atheists I talk to recognize that there may in fact be many things that we're never going to have an explanation for, or at least not a satisfactory explanation, in part because the barrier of time travel into the past at a minimum, and because the universe is constantly changing. But alongside of this, I think it's a mistake to say most atheists are X, because atheism tells you nothing except that they don't believe in God. There are plenty of atheists, to my increasing disappointment, who buy into all sorts of supernatural, woo, magical thinking crap. So it's not that just this idea that atheists are naturalists. Atheists are people who don't believe that a God exists. And I think it's a little bit of a mistake to conflate the two.
There's a big overlap, but
There's probably a pretty big overlap.
I see what you're saying. I would just say rather quickly, I'll say two things. One is that I think most atheists would fall into that category. But it's not even hard. I don't have data on that. I don't know if you have data on that. I haven't taken a survey.
No, so let's not do the thing of I think most blah blah blah.
Right,
just
exactly.
make the case.
I'm not in the, sorry, go ahead.
Just make the case, and we'll address it.
Tell us what this has to do with evolution.
Right. Yeah. So I was just going to say, given that point that you just made, I'm going to rephrase the argument so that it doesn't need that. Now I'm going to rephrase the argument so that all you have to believe is that there was no intelligent process guiding evolution. Take the conjunction of atheism. And you don't even really need atheism. Just believe that there was no intelligent process guiding evolution, and that's all I need. I think most atheists fall into that category, right?
I would say that most atheists are probably in the position, or most people who accept evolution are almost certainly in the position where they do not believe that there was an intelligent process guiding it. I don't know how many of them would assert that there was no intelligence. And there's a difference between not accepting something and accepting the contrary.
Right, exactly. You could be in a position of suspending, what we call suspending judgment, right? There's three dispositions you can have towards a given proposition. But I think the majority of atheists would affirm that. In fact, I think it's kind of built into the definition of atheist that you believe it's.
And I think that's wrong too, because there's two positions against a specific proposition. What you're actually doing is looking at two propositions in that case. One is the proposition that a God did intervene, and the other one is a proposition that no gods intervened. And
no,
so for each of those,
I didn't say God. I said some intelligent.
I don't care. Okay, fine. I don't care. Intelligent designer. Those are two separate propositions. One of them is that no intelligent designer intervened, and the other one is that an intelligent designer did intervene. And for each of those propositions, there are two possible positions of either accepting it or rejecting it, and it's possible to reject both. But there's not three positions for one proposition.
No, for any, I can give you an example. So suppose you flip a coin, right? You can either, before you flip it, there's a proposition the coin will come up heads is a proposition.
That's a proposition. You either accept that or not. There's no middle ground.
There is no middle ground in the sense
No,
that,
there's not. You either accept the proposition or you don't accept the proposition.
Oh, right. Yeah. No. I didn't know that's what you were. Well, what you're saying is you either accept it or you don't accept it.
Yes, those are.
Well, that itself is a proposition from law of excluded middle. You get that right. Either it's true
right.
that you accept it or that you don't accept it.
Cool.
What I would say is just to clarify, exactly what that means. That means that you could affirm, yes, it will be heads. You could affirm, I believe it will turn up not heads, which is tails.
That is not. If the proposition is the coin will land heads, you either accept that or you reject it. You have now included the second proposition that I was talking about, which is that the coin will not land heads, and you can either accept or reject that proposition. This is what I'm talking about conflating propositions. For a single proposition, you either accept it or you don't. Those are direct logical negations. You either accept or you don't. Not accepting the proposition does not mean that you accept the contrary.
Sorry, I'm splitting up not accepting it into the duality of affirming the negation and not affirming the negation. Do you agree that those two possibilities exist?
Yes, but now you're talking about
affirm the negation or not affirm the negation, right?
Yes, I understand that along with not accepting this proposition means that you could have one of two positions on the contrary. But that's now, Peter, now we're back to what I said, which is that is trying to simultaneously address two propositions, and we don't do that. We need to address a single proposition. But can we get past the Logic 101 thing to the actual argument?
Right. People use different terminology for what they mean by this. So I'm used to hearing it in terms of three parts because most people will, when they come to a proposition, because of
I don't care about most people, Peter. I want to hear the argument, because most people are wrong about arguments, and most people couldn't process an argument if it walked in here with instructions on how to process the argument.
Okay, yeah, I just want to be clear on the what I mean when I say.
I got you.
Anyway, so continuing with the argument, so most atheists would be of the position would believe that it was not the case that some intelligence, it's more likely than not.
And
You're asserting we believe something, and then if we assert we believe something, then we bear the burden of proof.
You just
And
ignored
this whole
everything.
thing sounds to me like a big trying to shove the burden of proof onto atheists.
No. I'm not trying to shove the
Okay.
burden. No. You're misunderstanding the argument.
So let me rephrase your first premise, and we'll drop the most atheists, and we'll say those people who hold that evolution, or who do not accept the proposition that evolution was guided by an intelligence. There you go. Continue.
Yeah. All right. So most people. So consider this. I'll rephrase it. Consider the set of people who believe that it is the most probable explanation that evolution was not guided by some intelligent force.
Well, now you're back to asserting the contrary instead of just rejecting the proposition that it was, which is what I pointed out 3 times now. Let's just take that initial premise and rephrase it so that if one does not believe evolution was guided by an intelligent designer, then what?
Right. I'm saying consider the set of those people who affirm the proposition that it was not the case. I'm not saying that.
You're back to that.
Asking you to consider a set.
Peter, you're back to considering those people who affirm that, and you're not even necessarily talking to those people who do. This is why I'm saying that the first premise needs to be, if one does not accept that evolution was guided by an intelligence, then...
Sure, you could. I think there's a slight semantic difference there, but sure, you could rephrase it the same way.
It's not just a semantic difference. It completely shifts the burden of proof, which is what Don was talking about. But go ahead.
Sure. If you do, So if you do not accept that, there was some intelligence that guided it, you're going to be led. You'll have a logical pathway to believing that it's more likely to. You'll have good reason to believe that your cognitive faculties are unreliable. That's how the argument works.
Our cognitive faculties.
Nobody has ever asserted that humans are reliable, as far as so this. I agree with your point.
So there's 2 things here.
Humans are fallible.
It depends on what you mean by whether or not the cognitive processes are reliable. In the colloquial sense, we already know that our cognitive processes are in fact unreliable, and we're so good at it that we can test to find out how reliable they are. And if what you're getting at is that this is also an application of our cognitive faculties, that there's a regress here, that the only way to assess these is through our faculties, then I agree with you, there's a regress. And we have to presuppose a few things. We have to presuppose that we are experiencing the reality that we appear to experience, that our senses are providing somewhat reasonable information, and that the foundations of logic, the laws of identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, are true. Now, those are all presuppositions. They're not...
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think you agree with that. I'm assuming we all agree on that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So what's the problem?
Good. So let me define what I mean by cognitive faculties being reliable. What I mean is that for the most part, that they're efficacious of producing true beliefs, that they have the capacity within them, so that when we use them and apply them,
you have a problem
more
already.
often than not.
You have a problem already with true beliefs, and it's far better to say that our cognitive faculties produce reliable, useful, accurate information that appears to be correct and benefits us. And as soon as we find out that that's not the case, then we change those presuppositions. So we use those presuppositions just as long as they keep working and keep producing results. But we live in a universe where we're not making proclamations about absolute truth. We deal in probabilities. We deal in likelihoods. Absolute certainty is, as far as I can tell, not possible. And not particularly relevant. My battery's running low. Is this power strip not on?
Yeah, well, depending on the way I'm not sure. I'm going to have to ask you to clarify in a second. But depending on how you mean that, it might be pointless to run the argument then, because if you're not a realist about sort of the beliefs that we produce, in the sense that you believe that the things that we come to think actually are the case. Like if you believe that we just are creating models, we don't really know what's out there, but whatever, we're just dealing with whatever's out there. You're not asserting, hey, it's real, it might not be real, maybe it's not real. We just know that we're operating with what seems to allow us to get by, then there's no argument to run at all, because
there's no
you might not be a realist.
There's no argument to run if your position is contingent upon absolute certainty. Am I convinced that my internal model of reality actually maps to the reality that I experience? Yes. Do I believe this to be the case? Yes. Do I know this to be the case? Yes, provided we're not requiring absolute certainty in order to make a claim of knowledge.
No, I'm not requiring absolute certainty.
Okay, then there's no problem here.
Well, actually, I think I can run the argument, because I think you said that you are convinced that what you seem to experience corresponds to the way things actually are.
Yes, I am convinced that these are the presuppositions that we begin with, and I'm convinced that they are accurate. So what?
Right, so you're convinced that, you are convinced that they're accurate. But I'm saying, if you follow this argument, you'll have a good reason for thinking they're not accurate, and that's what creates the contradiction.
No, because the only way to get to all right, you can try how would you demonstrate that they're not accurate?
Right, exactly. That's the whole point. It's a reductio ad absurdum argument.
Yeah, which would require a hidden absolute certainty in there, but go ahead.
I can continue the argument. You can stop me whenever you want. Sure. So the way the argument works is that, so given evolution being unguided, like if we assume, so we're assuming for the sake of contradiction that evolution was unguided. That's the first premise. Assume for the sake of contradiction that evolution is unguided.
Sure.
Okay. So now when we consider our beliefs, if you're a naturalist, if you are a naturalist, you'll believe that your beliefs aren't formed by like some soul or some spirit or something that's inside. You would think that it came about by your parts. The parts that constitute your body in some way or another are what's causing your beliefs. The interactions between your neurophysiology, the interactions between.
Sure, we can just sum it up that every concept appears to be a brain state that doesn't have any kind of supernatural cause. That it's a natural process that my brain does.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So these are the things that were formed over time by the process of evolution and natural selection.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea here is that as evolution works, it selects for beliefs that are adaptive, but not for beliefs that are true or false.
That's
for
correct.
Beliefs that are adaptive to survival.
That's correct.
Whatever's going to help you survive is essentially what's going to be selected for.
So let me ask you this, Peter. Are you more likely to survive if your internal model matches reality than if it doesn't?
This is the key point of the argument, and the answer is that it seems, when you really reflect on it, that it's equally probable, or
it's equally probable. So the person.
Can I explain?
So hang on, Peter. How can it, I don't know how we've gotten to the mathematical portion where we've determined equal probability, but as a matter of speculation, if I believe that there's not a car barreling down the street at me, and I'm wrong, I'm dead.
Right.
And if I believe that there is a car barreling down the street at me, I have the ability to get out of the way. So it seems to me that you can't say that inaccuracy is equally likely to produce positive results.
It's not. This isn't ad hoc. I have an argument for this.
Sorry?
This is not an ad hoc assertion. I have an argument for this.
Okay. I thought I just gave you one that you didn't respond to, but go ahead.
Do you want me to address your example? Should I address your example?
Yes.
Okay, so this is how I would just use it. So if you know, there's a car, right, that's coming at you. You could be of the belief that this car exists, I better get out of the way. The car actually does exist, and that true belief is going to help you get out of the way.
Okay.
Or you could be of the false belief that getting hit by a car will give you $1 million, right? Let's say you believe that, so you want to get hit by a car. But
so you've already changed what the premise is, but go ahead.
No. I'm explaining it as explained. So you believe that if you get hit by a car, you'll get $1 million. But if you get hit by an even faster car, you'll get even more money. So when you see this car, you think, oh, I could probably get hit by a faster car. And say you have the belief that the faster you get away from a car, the more money you'll get. So now you run away faster, and you're more adept to survive than the person who believes there's an actual real car coming at him.
Yeah, but see, you've completely changed my premise. This is the post hoc rationalizations that are in here. My thing is not that it's not possible for people to have false beliefs that are beneficial. I'm talking about, I'm walking out into the street. Two people are getting ready to cross this street from opposite sides of the street. One of them believes a car is coming down the street at a high rate of speed, and the other one does not believe that a car is coming down the street. They don't see the car. Their internal map of reality does not include the car. Which of those is more likely to wind up dead?
You can't, but you're leaving. Can I just address the problem in the example? It's almost like a.
So wait, you're going to say there's a problem. You're going to say there's a problem with my example, which addresses a discrete proposition that a car is coming, and instead you're going to offer me examples that go back to what we were talking about before, where instead of addressing a single premise, you're addressing multiples.
I know, but the problem here is just that the conjunction of your cognitive faculties includes more than a single premise. So when you're in your example, you're kind of assuming that there's only one premise that I'm considering when I'm considering a whole space of premises. And my point is that when you consider the premises that are going to be beneficial or not beneficial in terms of your ability to survive, that there's a countably infinite set.
Peter,
maybe even a
Peter,
countably infinite
I've
set
already.
of beliefs
And how many ways are there to be
beneficial or
wrong,
unbeneficial.
too, by the way?
Peter, I've already acknowledged that one could have virtually infinitely many delusions which don't result in one actually ending up dead.
Right.
But one could also have infinitely many delusions that also, as Don was pointing out, do not result in you dying. So all I'm talking about is whether or not the internal map of reality matches reality. And you're talking about a variety of different alternate views that might produce the same thing. Well, that's why I did the specific example that I did. Because the simple fact is, if the two of us are in this position, me and Don are standing side by side along the edge of a forest, and I am convinced that I see a tiger, and Don does not see the tiger, and I run away. Now, there's two possibilities. Either a tiger is there or there was no tiger there. If there was a tiger there, then I live with my correct belief, and Don will probably die with his incorrect belief. If there's not a tiger there, then we will both live. That is a complete admission of your point that Don's correct belief and my false belief can both lead to you living. I'm talking about the discrete situations where your map of reality, if your map of reality was completely accurate, if in fact every belief in your head mapped to reality exactly, are you more likely to make correct decisions about reality than someone who has merely one thing wrong?
Than someone who has merely one thing wrong. Well,
Sure. Hang on, Peter. Hang on, because I want to make this simple. Let's say there are only 1,000 facts about reality. That's it. And
okay.
I have all 1,000 of them correct, and Don has 999 of them correct, and Ben has 500 of them correct. Sorry, buddy. And you have 5 of them correct. Do you think it's unreasonable that we could say that the 5, the 500, the 999, and the 1,000 are also pretty much representations of how likely they are to make good decisions about reality?
I would say that answer would be contingent upon how those beliefs came about.
No, Peter, that's completely false.
But can I explain why? That's true.
It's
I have
not.
an argument for that.
Please tell me why that's true so I can once again tell you it's false.
I'll explain why I think it's true. I'm very curious to hear why you would think it's false.
Because the truth of a proposition is not in any way impacted by how you arrived at it. Don could flip a coin right now, and I could be convinced that Pixies told me it's heads, and I could be right. But the reason why I was right is completely irrelevant as to whether or not I'm actually right.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I agree. Well, on that I agree.
Good. Then you just agreed with my point.
No, I didn't agree with your point, and this is why. Can I explain why I didn't agree with your point?
Go for it.
The reason why I didn't agree with your point is because if you consider that we both came about, like assuming that we both came about by some means that made our beliefs beneficial to our survival, then I would believe that whatever set of false beliefs I have are also beneficial to my survival. And because for any set, you could consider some set of true propositions that help me survive, I can come up with another set of false propositions that not only help me survive, but help me survive better. And by taking away a true proposition from the set, I could be at a position where I'm less able to survive if all the other propositions in the set are true and I'm missing one. So that's why I thought your car example was faulty, because you were
listen to what you're doing,
the same
Peter.
propositions and that I was missing one, in which case you're right.
Listen to what you're doing.
If I'm missing one and I have a false one that's better, I'll be more apt to survive.
Listen to what you're doing. You're basically saying that it doesn't matter whether you are correct or not about reality. That there is, in fact, no benefit to being correct about reality, and it may, in fact, be in your best interest to be wrong about reality. That is the position you are now advocating.
Yes.
Okay, goodbye. We're done. That is patently absurd. I think it is. I think it is a complete. I think it is a lie. I think it is.
But I gave you an argument.
I think it is. You know what? It doesn't matter. I think it is completely dishonest on your part, because you're not willing to consider the discrete examples. You're not even willing to acknowledge that the example of narrowing it down to 1,000 facts about reality, you think the person that only has 5 of them right is likely to make better decisions about the reality. You want to?
No, I did not say that. I did not say that. I said
your entire position, Peter, your entire position that you summarized afterwards is that it could be in your best interest to be more wrong.
It could be, depending on, yes, if the false beliefs are such that you have a better adaptive trait, evolution guarantees they'll be wrong.
That's only true if you consider one specific example and all the possible fictions that could lead you away. But you're ignoring what those fictions can lead you to. This is the Gamblers Fallacy. This is the expectation that you're due. You are ignoring all the potential consequences of those false beliefs in order to assert for that specific situation that they lead to truth. And I'm talking about whose view of reality is more likely to consistently lead them to correct conclusions, the one whose internal map of reality accurately maps, or the one whose internal map does not map.
Can I just address that real quick? Can I just say,
I doubt it, but go ahead.
Has a perfect map of reality, right?
What? What?
Consider someone who has a perfect map of reality,
okay,
right? Now, that's going to influence their behaviors in certain ways.
Yes.
Because they're going to say, based on this map, I might do this, I might do that.
Yes.
And that's going to, lead them to having an outcome. But you can have a false map of reality. But for every action that you take, having that true map of reality, you can construct a set of false beliefs that leads to the same actions, such that they're identical.
But if you maintain those false beliefs, you are ignoring the consequences of those false beliefs in other scenarios.
No, but you're assuming that they would happen. There's true beliefs that could lead me to get eaten by a tiger as well in other scenarios. Obviously, if you have the true belief that you'll get eaten, that's one particular true belief, then you're not going to get eaten. But there's a huge set of other true beliefs you could have that would cause you to get eaten. You're assuming that true beliefs are always going to help you out, but they're not. In the same way that you can construct a set of false beliefs that lead you astray, you can construct a set of true beliefs that lead you astray. You just like to focus on the true beliefs.
You can construct a set of true beliefs,
and you're ignoring the whole other space of true beliefs.
So are you saying God's a fuck up because he's omniscient?
Say that again?
God, you're saying God. If God's omniscient and has all the true beliefs, then you're saying he can't possibly do anything right. Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, I haven't even mentioned God. I haven't even mentioned God in this whole discussion. But sure.
Okay, well, let's assume that God has omniscience.
Okay.
Are you saying that that's not a desirable trait?
No, I think omniscience is a good thing because it
Okay,
guarantees
because it
that,
helps you make the right decisions, right?
Well, I mean, it guarantees in a solid way that your decisions are rational. It guarantees that, well, not that your decisions are rational, I guess that depends on the person and some other things, but it does guarantee at least that you'll have true beliefs about what exists.
And why would you want true beliefs?
See what?
Why would you want true beliefs?
Why would you want true? I mean, I can answer. I mean, I think there's an intrinsic thing. I think there's something intrinsic about knowing the truth. I think we all sort of have an intrinsic desire.
No, I'm asking why would you portrayed omniscience as desirable because it means that you have true beliefs, and I'm asking why do you think true beliefs are desirable?
Why do I think true beliefs are desirable? It connects you to your world, I guess.
Thank you. That's what I've been saying for 15 frickin' minutes, and you've been arguing the exact opposite. Peter, we've had you on long enough. I appreciate the call. You are welcome to call back another time. I'm sorry you backed yourself into a corner, but that's the way it goes sometimes, and there's other people waiting. If you cannot, this is one of the things, the lame rationalizations that people do on behalf of religion. They're wanting to find a target anywhere they can, and they are willing to think themselves into knots and ignore the very obvious, clear ramifications that they will then admit under another context. So thank you, Don, for getting him where I
actually had
couldn't
another
get
way to short circuit this thing, but it was entertaining.
But yeah, it was fun. All right.